She thought a camera would be the final proof against her, until a single frame, and a judge with a human voice, turned certainty into mercy. It was a morning like any other in the courthouse, late sunlight slanting through high windows, dust motes suspended above worn benches, the quiet rustle of paper and shoes on linoleum. The calendar said it was a weekday, the docket said names and numbers and the small, precise indignities of traffic law. Joanne sat in the defendant's chair, palms folded, a paper cup of stale coffee forgotten in one hand. She had come expecting the routine, a stack of citations, a curt explanation, maybe a fine and a promise to be more careful. Instead, she found herself under the particular silence of a room that both records and judges. The prosecutor read the list: parking tickets at Allens Avenue and Terminal Street, and 3 red light violations captured by camera. The word violations landed with procedural weight. It was not dramatic, simply consequential. Joanne drew a breath and said she did not want to see the footage. It was an admission that more closely resembled fear than guilt. She knew the camera sees what the human eye sometimes rationalizes. The judge smiled a little, a crease of patience at the corner of his mouth, and invited the clerk to play the evidence. If courtroom drama is ever distilled to a single movement, it is the pressing of a remote. The video stuttered and then offered its small, sovereign truth: a car approaching an intersection with multiple painted stop lines, a confusion of white on asphalt, a traffic light changing color with a mechanical inevitability. One clip showed a vehicle passing what looked like the first stop line just as the light flashed red. Another clip, taken at a slightly different angle, suggested further ambiguity. The judge narrated what the camera did not: the spatial confusion at that particular intersection, and slowly the room's attention focused not on blame but on interpretation. There is, oddly, a kind of relief when adjudication becomes arithmetic. The judge explained aloud his yardstick: if the car was past the first stop line when the light turned red, he would dismiss the violation. That simple rule reframed the case. Where painted instructions were ambiguous, the state's case could not stand. 2 of the red light violations were dismissed on that basis. For Joanne, the dismissal was a breath she did not know she had been holding. For everyone else in the room, it was a demonstration of a principle: law must measure not only what a machine reports, but the context the machine cannot. Yet not every charge dissolved. One citation remained. The numbers in the footage, the timestamps, were precise and unyielding in their own way, tenths of a second that, on their face, decided the matter. The judge announced a charge: $170. The figure had a finality to it that the empty bench had not possessed a moment before. Joanne's mouth tightened. She asked for time to pay. To ask for time is to place a small human need against the unforgiving procession of statutes. The judge, whose voice until then had been a tool for sorting facts, softened a fraction. He granted a month. The human exchange reduced a transaction into a story. The court then considered separate clips from Pleasant Valley Parkway and Valley Strait. Here again the camera recorded microintervals, 0.3 seconds and 0.5 seconds, and the difference between acquittal and punishment narrowed to a single tenth of a second. When the margin between guilt and exoneration is this fine, the modern apparatus of enforcement can begin to feel like a game against the speed of light. The judge listened to the playback, compared the readings, and recognized that one recorded timestamp was only a tenth of a second more than the tolerance. He gave a break. One violation's penalty was reduced by half, from $170 to $85, and he allowed more time for payment. The arithmetic of the camera met the judgment of the man on the bench. Law met mercy. In moments like that, something essential about public institutions is visible. Machines can be ruthlessly precise; they cannot, however, be fair in the full sense. Fairness requires context, explanation, and the small, human judgment that says, this is more than a number. The judge's rulings did not flout the law, they interpreted it with an eye toward reasonableness. For Joanne, that meant a narrower financial burden and a diminished sense of indignity. For the assembled courtroom, it meant witnessing law functioning as designed. There are theater and pedagogy braided into the judge's technique. He reads the camera and the road and then translates both for the room, making the technical accessible. If you were past the first stop line when the light turns red, I'll dismiss it, he says. Those words are not only dispositive, they teach. People in the gallery, and later viewers on screen, learn that traffic rules are not only enforced but explained. The camera's silence is broken by the judge's voice, and a public lesson emerges from a private case. This short, civic drama is rich ground for storytellers. It has a clean arc, problem, evidence, decision, and resolution. It has emotional notes, a woman's humility, a judge's pragmatism, a courtroom's small compassion, and it has visual beats, the dim courtroom, the sharp timestamp on a screen, the painted stop lines that look more like a puzzle than a command. For a YouTube short, an editor could open on the judge's finger pressing play, cut to the timestamp and the light turning red, then snap to Joanne's profile as the fine is read. Overlay the numbers and end on a final frame showing the reduction, $170, $85. But the clip's richness extends beyond the visual. It raises questions about how we design public space. Why are stop lines so confusing at some intersections? How many fines and frustrations might be prevented by clearer paint, better signage, or a modest municipal review of problematic intersections? The episode could serve as a call to action for traffic engineers and city councils: refine the human environment before you rely on technology to police it. Joanne's experience is also an act of dignity reclaimed. She arrived feeling small under the lens of the camera. She left with the affirmation that she had been heard, that the court had weighed context and tempered enforcement. There is a moral warmth in that small victory, a reminder that systems exist to serve people, not merely to record lapses. For a viewer watching at home, the moment of the judge's decision offers the possibility that institutions can be both efficient and humane. Small theatrical moments also thread through the scene. The judge's wry asides, his slight refusal to go that far when asked about his competence, the exchange of embarrassed laughter when Joanne admits guilt in a softer tone, these human beats keep the audience engaged. They are not gimmicks, they are the necessary humanization of bureaucracy. The show's producers understand this, which is why the segment closes with a light promotional flourish, a line inviting viewers to tune in and be part of the judgment. It is marketing braided to civics, and it works because it does not diminish the seriousness of the matter. There is another layer to the clip, the tension between algorithmic certainty and moral nuance. Cameras produce data, humans read it. When a camera's timestamp becomes the sole arbiter, the system risks injustice in the small, a tenth of a second that translates into financial strain. The judge's willingness to speak the reasoning behind his dismissal converts an otherwise opaque technology into an accountable one. That conversion is a form of democratic oversight. For creators crafting content for justice stories, this episode offers templates. Use close-ups and timestamps to heighten tension, calmed music to let dialogue land, and point-of-view inserts of the painted lines to make the confusion tangible. Include a brief explainer by a traffic engineer or a short interview clip with a municipal official to expand the conversation beyond the courtroom. Such additions do not dilute the narrative, they broaden its civic relevance. But the scene's human center must remain primary. The camera's objectivity is important, the judge's humanity is vital. Joanne's request for a month to pay, small and unshowy, is the emotional fulcrum that allows viewers to feel the real-world effect of legal decisions. The judge granting that month is the concrete expression of a justice system that recognizes human limitations. If you were watching this on Justice Stories, you would feel both the tension and the relief in your chest, evidence shown, reason said aloud, a balance struck. You would also be invited to participate, to comment, to share, to judge for yourself. Watching people argue with machines about tenths of a second becomes, in the hands that curate such moments, a mirror held up to civic life. A small invitation here: if this account moved you, If the delicate collision of human judgment and mechanical evidence interests you, subscribe to Justice Stories for more real courtroom moments that reveal the unexpected.